Hey everybody, this is Jeff Coffin. I want to say thanks for having me at the Lamar University Jimmy Simmons Jazz Festival. I'm very excited to be here and doing a virtual clinic online this year. Hopefully I can get down there at another time and be able to spend some time with the students, which is one of my favorite things in the world to do. So I'm going to talk about a bunch of different things today. I'm going to start off by talking about using pedals on the saxophone, because I think that's a really fun and interesting way to start things off. I'm going to talk about the fundamentals, what I call the big five, and I'm going to talk about improvisation, voice leading, how to understand the vertical nature of harmony as we're moving along horizontally, the importance of working on not only fundamentals, but working on understanding vertical harmony, the arpeggios of different chords, and some practical ways to approach improvisation using the notes of the arpeggio. I also play a little for you at the very end, so don't leave. I'll be with you for about 45 minutes today, and there's a bunch of information within the video. My website is jeffcoffin.com. I hope you enjoy it. I had a lot of fun putting this together. The last year has been a whirlwind for me. It's been very interesting. I've found many creative ways of being creative, which is one of the things that I preach to my students also, and to other musicians, of course. So I would encourage you all to find creative ways of being creative. Just because things take a quick left turn doesn't mean we stop doing what we do. All right. Thanks for having me once again. Thanks to Rick Condon. And once again, my deep thanks to Lamar University, Jimmy Simmons Jazz Festival, and to the Simmons family in particular. Thanks for your support. Take care. Later. So I want to talk a little bit about using pedals with the saxophone. I use a number of different ones. I use delay pedals. I use an envelope filter, which is what I'm going to show you now, which is pretty cool. But when I'm recording also, I may use a chorusing effect. I might use, a digital delay. I might use a little bit of a distortion, and that's usually when I'm in Pro Tools working, kind of going for a certain effect. I'll also sometimes use a pitch shift, so that maybe I have it's almost like a power chord. I would have like a fifth below or a fifth above the initial tone. So there's all sorts of ways to mess around with things. So using a regular tone sounds like this. Right, I've also got what's called a POG, P-O-G, from Electro-Harmonics, and this drops things down an octave. Check this out. All right. That's a POG, all right? And next I'm going to use the Tron envelope filter. And basically what this does to the sound is it opens the sound according to sort of the amount of volume. For me, the amount of air that I'm putting through, so it's going wah, wah, wah. It's kind of giving that sound, right? So check this out. Right now, how would they sound together? How would the POG and the Tron sound together? This is pretty great. All right, so that's a pretty cool sound. So that's a little bit of what I do with pedals. There's any number of different ways to try things out using just an amp and like a Shure 57. Just plug in and start to work on some things. So have fun with those. Explore. You know, like all parts of music, you got to explore to find out what you like. And so that's one of the things that I like. You can also go to horn-fx.com, and there's some really interesting information on there from some guys that spend a lot of time with pedals and make recommendations on certain things. So I definitely recommend checking that out too. That's a pretty cool site. And on a number of my recordings, you can hear where I'm using different pedals. Another one that I use is called an M9, made by Line 6, and basically it has a bunch of different presets in there that you can mess around with, but you can use 3 different settings at a time. So if you want to use, like, say, a delay, a reverb, and you know, a harmonizer, you could use all 3 of those at once. So kind of the sky's the limit, you know. And but again, explore some things, try some things, and see what you come up with. That's kind of what I do with it. So that's a little bit on pedals. I hope that was informative, and I hope you'll go out and check some cool things out. All right, on to the next thing. All right, so let's talk about fundamentals. I think that fundamentals are one of the very most important things that we can work on as musicians. The fundamentals are, well, they're fundamental. Everything that we play is based in the fundamentals. And one of the things about the fundamentals is that we can always continue to work on them. I'm going to find a sheet here for you that will tell you about the fundamentals. And I'm going to share my screen, and as I do this, I'm going to talk about them a little bit. And this is what I call the Big Five. I've basically come up with 5 fundamentals that I believe are sort of the backbone of everything that we do, right? And all right, share the screen here. Here we go. All right. So the Big 5 fundamentals below are what I consider to be the 5 basic fundamentals of music. By working on these 5 areas, you will develop the skills and most of the technique you should ever need. I feel these are the most important skills we should work on. The fundamentals will be the roots of your playing, just like the roots of a tree. All right? Listening has to be at the very top. Listening is the most important fundamental that you can possibly work on. You can have all the technique in the world. You can have all the understanding of harmony, rhythm, time, articulation. But if you're not listening, that stuff doesn't mean anything. All right. So listening is the most important fundamental. After that, I think that tone and dynamics is next in the order of importance. The reason being is that your tone is your identity. When you listen to a Miles Davis recording or a Louis Armstrong recording, John Coltrane, Sonny Rollins, Charlie Parker, et cetera, et cetera. What tells you who it is isn't necessarily the notes they're playing. It's the sound that they're getting. It's their identity. You listen to it and you go, oh, that's Coltrane. You recognize it by the sound. Now, people can emulate and sometimes maybe fool you a little bit. But ultimately, you're like, No, that's not Coltrane, or that is Coltrane. Or that's not Sonny Rollins, or that is Sonny Rollins. So again, your tone is your identity, your personality, who you are in sound. Dynamics is the emotional component. I don't think you can have a good understanding of tone without also having a good understanding of dynamics. Okay, so that's why I put those two things together: tone and dynamics. One of the ways you work on tone and dynamics, of course, is by doing long tones. I recommend doing long tones with a tuner, and I'm going to go ahead and pull up my tuner on my phone here. And I recommend using a strobe tuner if you can. iStrobo Soft is one. And so you'll see lines on here also, okay? And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this in front of me here. Make sure I'm in tune. Okay, so B flat concert. I'm going to start soft, go to loud, back down to soft again. Okay, so I would do that twice. I would do it for longer, of course. I would do it twice on each note and then move up or down chromatically for 5 to 10 minutes every day. So what that's doing is it's strengthening your chops. It's strengthening your air support also, because it's forcing you to play in tune in all the different dynamic, quote unquote, dynamic emotional ranges of the instrument. Dynamics is just another word for emotion, by the way. And so it forces you to pace your air. And when you're backing down off the note and getting softer at the end, it really forces you to reckon with your tuning and also your air support, your voicing, what's going on inside your mouth with your tongue also. So long tones are very, very important. The most important thing that you can do to further develop your tone. And if that's the second most important fundamental there is, you can see how important it is to do those things. Rhythm and time. I put these together. They're separate things, but they're very interconnected. I think of time as metronomic, tick, 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 tick. Okay, and I think of rhythm as the patterns or pulsations that are going over that particular time. You can also have rhythm without having time. I think that our voices are a great example of that. We can all agree that my voice has rhythm to it. And sometimes it's in time. Sometimes it's in time. Hey, sometimes it's in time. Sometimes it's in time. But not always. Most of the time, there's a pulsation going on, but we're not necessarily talking in 4/4 or 7/8 or anything like that, right? And we're not at 120 beats a minute. Sometimes it may be a little slower. Sometimes it may be faster, right? So you can hear that, and if you're paying attention to that, that's one of the constants of how we understand phrasing and rhythm is our own human voice. That pulsation informs what we do. All right. The next one is articulation. Articulation is about clarity, not just clarity of tone, but clarity of an idea, clarity of a concept, clarity of an intention. When we speak, I come back to the spoken language a lot. When we speak, if you could think about what's going on inside your mouth, like I'm trying to picture myself being inside my mouth right now as I'm talking, which I know sounds kind of weird, but I've been thinking about that and thinking about all the different places inside that my tongue is hitting. All right. And so if I think about that when I'm articulating on the saxophone, there's such a variety that's going on that it can't help but to be interesting. All right. So when you're articulating on the horn, think about the same way you articulate when you're speaking. If I'm playing a blues, for example, right, and I'm going to go ahead and pull one up here real quick in using iReal Pro. If I play a blues, all right, let's see here. I'm just going to play a B flat blues at 95 beats a minute. I'm going to play one chorus. And I'm going to use a spoken phrase. How are you today? Da 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 da. All right, that's going to be my improvisation. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. How are you today? All right, so you can hear how that really works. So I'm thinking about the articulation of saying those words, and then I'm putting it into a solo. All right. The fifth of the big five fundamentals is harmony. Now, these last three, by the way, can come in any order they want to come in. The first two, I think, need to stay where they are. Harmony is the relationship between sounds. As we think about harmony, a lot of times music theory is overwhelming for people. Remember that music theory was developed to actually make things easier, not to make things more challenging. There are millions of combinations of intervals in a 12-note system. So music theory ends up taking a little slice at a time. Okay, it's like if you go to a deli and you ask for cheese, they don't just put the whole block of cheese up there, right? They take a little slice at a time because it's digestible. So when we're working on music theory, when we're working on harmony, we're just taking a little slice at a time. Maybe we're just doing major scales in the modes of the major scales. And then how do we think about the arpeggiations off of those different modes of the major scale? And then we go to minor, different forms of minor, melodic minor, harmonic minor, natural minor. Then we get into more advanced scales like whole tone, diminished, etc. Right? So again, taking one little slice at a time is the best way to make it digestible for you. Don't try to learn it all at once. Start to understand the relationship between sounds. What does a third sound like? Understanding that a major third is an inversion of a minor sixth, right? C to E and then E to C. Right? Those same notes in an inversion, and you have a balance within the scale. If you look at it that way, it comes back to the tritone in the center. But everything else is a mirror image of its reciprocal, okay? Spend some time with harmony, and spend some time with the fundamentals, of course. It may feel sometimes like these are 5 different islands that you're looking at. Like if you look at the Hawaiian Islands from above, they look like they're floating in the ocean, but they're not, are they? Right? If you took away all the water, you would understand that those islands are connected underneath the water. Okay, and the fundamentals are the same way; they're connected underneath the surface. As you get deeper into these, you'll also find that you start to see those connection points. You start to see how listening is related to articulation, how articulation is related to harmony, how harmony is related to rhythm and time, how all those different things are related to tone and dynamics. And again, it all circles back around to the top, okay, the very top of the fundamental pyramid, which is listening. And that is your most important fundamental that there is. All right. This information is on my website, jeffcoffin.com. So you can go to the education page there and you can check out the big 5 fundamentals. They're also in my saxophone books. It's called the Saxophone Book, and it's at thesaxophonebook.com. So this information and a bunch of questions that I have about the fundamentals are in those books as well. And at the end of each of those 3 books of the Saxophone Book, it's a 3-book series, are my personal answers to all those questions. For example, like why is listening important? How do we work on it? All these different things. So that's the big 5 fundamentals. For those of you who are going to teach, which will be all of you if you decide to have a career in music at one point or another, these are important things to think about. These are the building blocks. These are the roots of the tree. If you put a tree in the ground and a stick in the ground next to it, and you come back in a year, which one is growing and why? Think about it. All right, so without exception, when people come to me for lessons, one of the things that we talk about are strengths and weaknesses. And I think that strength and weaknesses is something that we should all pay a lot of attention to. I recommend writing down 5 strengths and 5 weaknesses. Evaluating and reevaluating where you are musically, I think is imperative. I also do this from time to time. I do this with my students. Any new student I have, that's the very, very first thing that we do. And a lot of times I ask them to do it before they meet with me. So the process has already begun. One of the things invariably that a student will come to me with as a weakness is understanding chord changes. And I get it. You know, understanding chord changes is a challenging thing. And not even just the amount of time we have per bar. All right, so let's say that we're playing a medium swing tune at 120 beats a minute. In 4/4, we have 2 seconds in that bar. All right, it's 60 beats a minute on a ballad. All right, each beat is a second long. Right, so we have 4 seconds. At 120, it's half that amount. At 240, it's half that amount again. We have 1 second per bar. So if you're at 240 beats per minute, and there's 2 chord changes in that bar, you have a half a second per chord change. It's not a lot of time. All right. So let's step back and let's talk about practicing slowly. All right. One of the reasons that I practice slowly and that I have all my students practice slowly is so that it gives us time to figure out what it is we're going to play next. All right. Especially if you're kind of new to improvisation, or if you're working tunes in multiple keys, which I highly recommend doing tunes in all 12 keys. Not every tune you work on, but pick a couple of tunes every semester and work them in all 12 keys. I talk a lot about voice leading also and how to get from one chord to the next. And that's one of the things I'm going to address now. I'm going to talk about, I've written out these voice leading grids. And I'm going to share my screen with you so that you can see what it looks like. So the voice leading grid over one chord. So I'm using a C7 chord. One of the things, and most of you probably understand this already, but the alterations, when we talk about a chord having a flat 7 or a sharp 11 or a flat 3 or whatever, those are all in relation to their parent major scale. So if I say the C7 chord, C dominant 7, C flat 7, I'm talking about a C major chord with a flat 7, okay, with that B flat that's there. And so to make a chord, as we all know, or we should know, we jump every other note, 1, 3, 5, and 7, no matter what note we're starting on, okay? So here we're starting on the root, so we're going C to E to G to B flat. That's the 5th mode, okay? The Mixolydian mode of F major. Without getting too deeply into that, which is sometimes a little confusing. This is the C Mixolydian scale. So what I've done is I've written it from the bottom up. C, E, G, B flat, C, E, G, B flat, blah, blah, blah. So I've written out 4 bars. And what I've done is I'm showing here that if we start on C, we could play C all the way through this. It'd be pretty boring, but you could do it. But basically we have one of 2 choices starting on the C. We can either go up to the E or down to the B flat. I've just randomly chosen, I'm going to go up to the E. So from this E, again, we could stay with the common tone, or we could go up to the G, or I could have gone down to the C. I chose to go up to the G. From the G, I could, again, have the common tone. This time I chose to go back down to the E. My other choice would have been to go to the B flat. These broken lines are potentials of where I could have gone also. I could have gone to the B flat, which then could have led me to the C or the G. If I went to the G, I could have gone to the B flat or the E. If I went to the C, I could have gone to the E or the B flat. So in iReal Pro, I've written out some exercises here. I'm going to move this so that you can see what I'm doing here. So I'm going to play these notes for 4 bars, all right, at 90 beats a minute. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? So you can hear that those notes work over that chord change. Now, again, I could take a bunch of different possibilities off of that C. The C is just the first note of the arpeggio, though, right? So what if then I started on the 3rd, if I start on the E? So this time I've decided to go E, C, B flat, C. Let's hear how that sounds. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? So you get the idea, I think. What if I started it on the 5th? Okay. What if I started it on the flat 7? Now this is just one chord. So let's take this example, starting on the flat 7. Now what if I put some rhythm to that? Let's say I'm going boo ba dee da dee da dee da, 1, 2, and 3, and 1, 2, da dee da, right? Thinking about the lilt of swing also, boo da, doo da. It's like row, row, row your boat, row your boat, row your boat. You feel that slight delay before I say boat. Row your, row your boat, row your boat, row your, row your, row your, row your. Right? It's cyclical. It's got that little hump to it. Row your boat, row your boat, row your boat. Boom, that is. That's the swing rhythm, okay? So I'm going to use 1, B, ba, dee, da. So it's like 1, row your, right? Then I'm going to do B flat C, E to C. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? So you hear how that works. Now, my point with this, I'm going to come off of the sharing screen. My point with this is that you can then, you can play a really lovely solo only using the notes of the arpeggio, right? So let's see, let me find iReal Pro again, and I'm going to play 12 bars, and I'm only going to play the notes of the arpeggio, either C, E, G, or B flat. I can use whatever rhythms I want. 2, 3, 4. Right? So that's just over one chord. Now, what if we do a similar thing over 2 chords, right? The first two, let's say the first 2 chords of a blues, a C7 to an F7. Check this out. All right? So it's the same idea. All right? So I've got the 2 Mixolydian scales built from the bottom up. All right? C7 to F7. And what I'm going to do with those is I'm going to decide from the C. Again, C would be a common tone all the way through, which I don't want. So I'm going to go C, E flat, E to F, just in ascending. And you start to see architecture through this also. If I had gone down to the A, my 2 choices would have been either B flat or G. If I had gone to the G, my two choices would be A or the F. This is voice leading. This is elements of voice leading. So I do that on the root. I do that on the third to start to understand where my ear is taking me, right? And again, you can start to see this architecture that's developing. And then here, I go to the fifth. All right, I go to the G, and I have some different possibilities there as well. And then I go to the B flat. All right. So let's try the B flat one again, just because we did that last time. Let's go ahead and start on the seventh. And I'm going to leave these chords up here for you. And I'm going to move iReal Pro to the side. And here we go. So I'm going to go B flat, C, E to E flat. And away we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right, so you see there's different ways through this. Now, let's take that a step further and really show you some architecture. All right, so this is working over a blues. And you can really start to see now the architecture of this, starting on the root, starting on the third, starting on the fifth, and starting on the seventh. Now, I'm only giving you one way through right now. There are multitudes of ways to go through this. You can make a grid like this and do it yourself. So I'm going to play this one again starting on the seventh at 90 beats a minute, okay? And let's see where this takes us. So I'm going to use a different rhythm though. Boo-ba-dee-da. Boo. Let's go. Do-ba-dee-dee-da. That's what I'm going to use. 2, 3, 4. Boo-ba-dee-da-da. That's what I'm going to do. Z-da-dee-da-da. So that's the rhythm I'm going to use. 4/8 notes and a quarter note. And I'm going to follow this exact diagram. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so obviously I went off the grid for the middle two solos. But then the last time through, all I did was I played the grid note. I was just jumping octaves and using different rhythms, right? So these voice leading grids are really great to start to understand voice leading, how to get from one chord to the next, and practice just playing arpeggios through a solo, not just root position. I'm talking about like trying to connect them, but only using one of 4 notes, or only using 4 notes per bar, and trying to voice lead your last note of one bar into the first note of another bar. I've been developing an app for the last 5 or 6 years that's in beta testing right now. It's going to be out very soon, called Connecting the Dots. This is one of the things that we do there. We work on 1 chord, 2 chord, and then blues. 3 different sections, all in 12 keys, starting with 1 note, go to 2 notes per bar, 3 notes per bar, 4 notes per bar. Starting on the root, the 3rd, the 5th, and then the 7th. And this basically teaches you about arpeggiations and voice leading. This allows you to start to understand how to voice lead through a tune. This will teach you how to play changes. Now, the improvisational part of that is different. The improvisational part, the word improvisation comes from a word that has a Latin root, improvisus. And that translated literally means unforeseen, unexpected surprise. Your creativity is what improvisation is about. Your way of looking at different ways of approaching these things. If you're playing 4 notes of the arpeggio, right, and then you suddenly approach those notes by a half step below, let's take the C7. Right, if I approach those 4 notes by a half step, suddenly I'm at 8 notes that I can play in that bar. There's only 4 notes that I'm not playing out of the chromatic scale. That's a lot of material to work with, right? So you start to develop these ideas based around what I call the bones, the skeletal structure of the chord. This is the arpeggio, the way they go up vertically as they're moving along left to right, okay? If you don't know how to arpeggiate an F sharp 7 chord, or a C sharp minor 7, or an A flat major, when that chord comes up, you're just guessing on what to play. So you have to have a better understanding of the bones, okay? The vertical nature of harmony. Again, as it's moving horizontally. And if you work on this, this is going to serve you in the most wonderful way. And then you're going to start to be able to play through changes, and then your own creativity is where the improvisational part comes into play. So again, Connecting the Dots, the app will be up soon, probably within the next month, and I hope you'll check it out. Again, my website's jeffcoffin.com, and I think that all this information is there, all my books, all my education material, all my recordings, all the info about my record label also, what's coming up, etc., etc. So I hope this helped. This is a really great way to dig deeper into how to play changes. All right? Good luck. All right, so I'm going to play a little bit for you here at the end. And just want to thank everybody for listening. And I hope that some of the things that I talked about today will help you in your musical journey, in your improvisational journey, in your career journey, your education. I think I already said educational journey. But this is all a process. The things that we do are all a process. And sometimes it's challenging, you know. All relationships have one thing in common. There will be conflict, okay? And that's not saying it's a positive or negative, but you got to figure out your way through, all right? So you're having a relationship with your instrument. And I have a relationship with this horn every single day, all right? And all these other horns, my bass flute, my alto flute, my piccolo, my bass clarinet, the baritone, when I'm recording something, when I'm writing something, when I'm arranging, when I'm mixing. So don't get discouraged, okay? You know, keep on plodding through little step by little step. So I'm just going to play a little free something or other for you. I don't know what I'm going to play yet, but I'm just going to explore the instrument for a couple of minutes. Real quick, my gear, I play Yamaha tenors. I play all Yamaha instruments, all the saxophones, my C flute, my piccolo, and my alto flute are all Yamaha horns. I play the 82Z unlacquered. The neck that I'm playing is from the Boston Saxophone Shop, the BSS Heritage neck. I also play the BSS ligature, the gold-plated ligature. I also play the BSS reeds, which are amazing. Greatest reeds I've ever played in my life. Best ligature and neck I've ever played in my life, too. The mouthpiece is a Freddie Gregory. Freddie was a brilliant mouthpiece maker back in the day. He's no longer with us, unfortunately, but he made incredible mouthpieces, and I've been playing on this for quite some time now. So here we go. Oh, in the next strap is also from the Boston Saxophone Shop. It's called the Balam, B-A-L-A-M. If you're interested, you can go to bostonsaxshop.com, and if you use the code Coffin, my last name, you get 10% off anything that you buy in the store. All right? And you can go back and use that code every time you shop there also. bostonsaxshop.com, use the promo code Coffin. All right, there we go. Okay, here's the Pledge of Allegiance. Peace, everybody. Take it easy.